I don't have a car, I don't even know how to drive, and yet, I'm doing just fine. That is only because I live in Chicago, one of the most walkable cities in the US. SpongeBob doesn't have a car and doesn't know how to drive, and he also seems to be doing just fine. So, does that make Bikini Bottom a walkable city? Well,
if I had to give it a watt score, like out of 10, maybe like just out of 10.
it's complicated. First off, the term walkable city doesn't necessarily mean you could go around everywhere just by walking. It means that you are within close enough distance to reach most, if not all, of your most basic needs without a vehicle. It also means that you could go to those locations easily and safely. For example, these are places relating to work, groceries, restaurants, doctors, and leisure. If you can't physically walk there, then public transportation with regular, reliable daily schedules would suffice. Plenty of sidewalks and bike lanes are also a huge plus. A suburb is typically considered not walkable. It's a place that is highly vehicle reliant, where taking a car to the local theater is a 15-minute ride, compared to the hour and a half it would take if you were to walk there. Unfun fact, about a decade ago, due to home repairs, I had to spend a summer in the suburbs with my family, and I was just so depressed for most of it. I was a teenage city slicker used to all the conveniences a city provided, and then to be suddenly dropped someplace where I could not go anywhere on my own, where all the buildings were alike, where I was far, far away from all of my friends, it's no wonder why I mostly just stayed inside using my laptop. At one point, I did try to go out to get some snacks, and it took an hour to walk to the store and then another hour to walk back. And halfway through the trip there, the sidewalk just kind of gave up, and it was all grass from there on. If I had a car, getting around would have been easy peasy lemon squeezy. Unfortunately, at least in the US, most towns are designed with cars in mind, first and foremost. Is this also the case for Bikini Bottom? To start, at least at first glance, their downtown isn't very large, especially when you consider other bigger neighboring cities. As for its population, that's not entirely clear, as there could be as low as 500 residents or millions in the city alone.
We don't have much time. In a few minutes, we'll be flattening millions of innocent lives.
Now, just from some quick glances at the city's roads, we can immediately spot something that doesn't really happen in real life. The pedestrians use the same road as vehicles. While there are sidewalks here and there, the majority of time a character is walking around, it will be on a road. This is very similar to early industrialized America, back when cars were starting to be a thing. Everyone kind of just shared the road. That is, until there was a massive push to turn them into vehicle-only spaces, and we know how that turned out. But there's been no such push in the SpongeBob universe. Everyone is free to use the common roads as they please, with the exception, of course, of the busier highways. The main road we see is Conch Street, as it goes from downtown to SpongeBob's home to the Krusty Krab. Now, these areas are a lot more desolate, with the buildings being very far from each other. So knowing all of this, let's examine how effective each form of transportation is in this universe. Note that we're gonna have to sort of ignore most of the cartoon logic and try to examine everything seriously. Because otherwise, what's the point of all of this if people could just travel via a bubble transition? First, let's start with the world's car equivalent, boats. But they actually also sometimes refer to these vehicles as cars, so I'll just do the same for simplicity's sake. We have repeatedly seen instances where there's just a lot of traffic. In this iconic scene where SpongeBob is trying to demonstrate how much better the outside world is compared to prison, there's this cutaway.
She's forgotten what it's like to live on the outside, to not be in prison.
Coming to bed, honey?
Yes, dear.
This highlights how realistically mundane the world of Bikini Bottom can be, and part of that reason is because of a terrible commute. Road delays, construction, bumper-to-bumper traffic. While we do see busy highways and even a whole special episode around them being intrusively constructed, the majority of the time when we see roads, they're pretty clear. And cars aren't really shown parked either, at least not as much as you would expect. There's barely been depictions of parking lots too, and in the most notable scene where Mr. Krabs is enjoying free parking, his vehicle is the only car there. All of this leads me to believe that, just like in our world, the busiest road times are when people go to and come back from work. All the time in between leaves incredibly clear streets, with maybe a few cars here and there. It could also be that certain roads, like those highways, are specifically built to handle the brunt of traffic. Maybe the vehicles themselves are mostly used for the work commute, and people choose other means of getting around for all their much closer needs, perhaps in the form of public transportation. The Snailways bus service in Bikini Bottom brings people all over, and it seems to be generally reliable. Residents do actively use it. There's hardly ever been an instance of an empty bus. Maybe just a few people, sure, but it always has passengers. In fact, the bus is the very first vehicle on the show because in the pilot episode, the nematodes all arrive in packed buses. It is such an integral part of the city that it was included in this Japanese promotional Bikini Bottom map. Another good sign of efficient public transportation is if the middle class uses it consistently. Now, in terms of economic classes, that's kind of hard to gauge considering that SpongeBob and Squidward have their own multi-story homes on a restaurant worker's salary. Really, the only class distinctions that are seen are when it has to be played up for the comedy. A poor person is very poor for this joke. A rich person is very rich for this joke. The citizens of Bikini Bottom seem to be paid well enough for their labor that it's hard to find that economic middle. So let's just make it easy and say that the people who have to wear suits to work are the middle class. And they do, in fact, ride the bus. There's also Bikini Bottom Station that provides fast transportation, but those trains are more for long distance travel rather than everyday commutes. Now that I think about it, as far as I can tell, and leave a comment if I'm wrong, there are over 300 episodes, so I very well could be, but I don't think there's a single plot point where a character couldn't get somewhere because they didn't have a car. A reminder that SpongeBob's troubles with the bus in the Rock Bottom episode doesn't count. Yes, he was far away from home and couldn't get back due to the erratic bus schedule, but that was not Bikini Bottom. So, back to how a car hasn't really been necessary in the show, the closest instance that I can think of is in Pizza Delivery, where SpongeBob and Squidward lose their vehicle and then have to undergo a tremendous trek to their destination. Yes, they did eventually ride a rock, but for a good chunk of it, they were forced to go on foot. In that journey, there was a whole lot of nothing. Just a huge, barren, desolate space where there was no other option but to walk. It's a good thing these characters are so used to it. By the way, if you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing. It helps out a ton. Thanks. SpongeBob famously does not have a driver's license. It's kind of a big thing about him. Yet, it doesn't seem like he needs one. He's able to get to work and around town relatively easily just by walking or sprinting. The same goes for Squidward, who does have a license and vehicle, but is mostly seen walking or riding a bike. SpongeBob has also been known to use a different mode of transportation, his trusty unicycle. As for everyone else, we mostly see them walking around. So, if SpongeBob is able to live a pretty good life without a vehicle, why is he still trying over and over again to get his license? Perhaps it's just something he works towards, a goal for himself. He has been shown to have extensive knowledge of vehicles, to the point that he has been able to take over a guided tour with his knowledge. He could also even drive the paddy wagon, which I know is a sandwich, but for all intents and purposes, it's essentially a car. So maybe he just has major test anxiety and breaks under the pressure when he knows he's getting examined. There have actually been multiple episodes where he does legitimately get his license, but through a series of hijinks and destructions, it is rescinded. So, there it is. Bikini Bottom is a walkable city, but that's a lot of walking, right? Everything is so far apart, maybe I don't know, maybe they're just used to it? Also, why is it so rare to see businesses downtown? It seems like it's mostly just residentials. Do they always have to go out of their way to get groceries? And what's up with these larger downtown roads with a significantly higher amount of cars? There are no pedestrians on the pavement in sight. And what the heck is up with this? The city seems walkable, but at what cost sometimes? My brain hurts and my mind is breaking. I keep going back and forth and I can't do this. I can't handle the weight of making a decision here. So, faced with immense responsibility, I only have one choice left. Procrastinating by playing Marvel Rivals. And then after that, I contacted Bryce from the channel Flurf Design. He is very passionate about urban design, and he's even worked on graphics for his city's public transportation system. So I think it'd be best for him to deal the final verdict on this one.
The urban planner Jeff Speck, he has a whole book about what makes a city walkable, and he essentially has 4 key principles of a walkable city. First one is that walk has to be useful. Second one is that it has to be safe. Number 3, it has to be comfortable. And lastly, a walk has to be interesting. All 4 points are important. Like, you need to do all 4 of them simultaneously for a city to be walkable. The first one, making a walk useful, I would say is like, if I had to say, it would be the most important, but they're all like necessary. Safe usually refers to traffic safety, safety from cars. Tricky thing is like Bikini Bottom SpongeBob seems like you're more likely to get run over by a, I don't know, what's that image you had where Squidward was in the mid spike roller. So from a traffic safety standpoint, it seems pretty safe. Unless SpongeBob is driving, but the next one is the comfortable. Walking has to be comfortable. Jeff Speck's book, he mostly refers to having the wall to our backs, like having a sort of sense of enclosure in the city, right? Having buildings that face the streets and go right up to the sidewalk, creating an outdoor room almost, right? You have walls, maybe you have trees that sort of create like a canopy that's like the ceiling. The idea is like creating an outdoor living space. For Bikini Bottom, it seems like the buildings are sort of kind of isolated. They're kind of placed here and there. They don't really connect to one another. As for the 4th point, interesting watch, the buildings in Bikini Bottom do kind of look kind of boring, like especially at least the residential apartments. The big, like, I guess, restaurants and shops are definitely very interesting. Most of like the residential apartments in the city look kind of plain, but Bikini Bottom is known for its natural beauty, the landscapes. So I think that does make up for it being interesting. The Bikini Bottom itself, I get the impression that it's pretty small, and the fact that people walk everywhere suggests that pretty much everything is within walking distance. Overall then, I would say yes, Bikini Bottom is walkable. It could definitely use some improvements. It could use some better transit and like more continuous buildings in the downtown. So it's not just like buildings plopped here and there. But if I had to give it a walk score, like out of 10, maybe like a 6 or 7 out of 10.
Well, there you have it, straight from the expert's mouth. Big thank you to Bryce for joining me on this journey. You should really go and check him out to learn more things about urban design. If you have anything more to add to our verdict, please let us know down in the comments. And thank you so much for watching.